months ago, in the middle of December, we took a short break in Scotland. This isn't the kind of image you're used to seeing from me. I really take landscapes because I love being out in certain places, but the photographs don't take my breath away in the same way that the place does. But when we stopped to gaze at this view, I just had to. And actually, for once, I was quite pleased with it. Yeah, this is much more me. It's close up, there's details, there's lots of texture, and I just want to keep looking into that eye. There's something about the gaze that just holds me. This was taken during the same short break in Scotland. Golden grasses during the golden hour, blue sky, simple square. I've noticed that a square is one of the formats I love to crop to, and I nearly always crop to either square or to 16 by 9. Like quite a few of us, I've been bitten by the creative photography bug. Being honest, it's not that new for me. I've always liked to do different things and to experiment. But maybe in recent months I've been braver or more bloody-minded about doing things the way I like. In this one, I was just playing around with slow shutter, trying to create movement on a very still day. These are much more manipulated. I use standard photographs and various apps with textures, borders, grunge filters, etc. I've done this quite a bit, and I love the results I get, and I love the fact that there's lots of things I can control and change. But more and more I've experienced a dissatisfaction that there are things which are not coming totally from me. However, I can use creative choice in the things that I choose to photograph. Things, stuff, items. I can use creative choice in the angle that I choose. Although when it comes to the ship, I live a few minutes up the road, so I've photographed it from just about every angle possible. I've been discovering how different angles and different crops can make a photograph totally different. These two were just minutes apart. The first one, I feel very much like a viewer, and the length of the railings stretching across their diagonal draws me right into the image. The second one, I find the figure at the end, which was Darren, and the spray that you can see all over the photograph makes me feel much more involved in the picture and more of a participant. I think lots of us found the Glynis Garnett talk inspiring and encouraging. These two flower images were done on a borrowed camera at the club night which followed. That cemented my decision that I was going to get a new camera. These were also from the club night. Borrowed a few different lenses, I played around with soft focus and with creative editing. I put an image of multiple exposure daffodils into the print competition, and I was really pleased with the result. This one and the next are also daffodils. They were also multiple exposures. They were also taken on the same day, but this time in the back garden under the willow tree. And that meant the colours and the shapes were totally different. This one I edited with an app to enhance the abstractness of the image. The next one I wanted to increase the dreamlike feeling to the image. I've used my phone to try and experiment more and more with multiple exposures. These two, I was walking around as I took them. And in this image in Lancaster, I found I could get just enough delay between the different exposures so that I could try and put the daffodils over the top of the priory. So I took a few exposures of the priory, followed by a few of the daffodils. At least, I think I had it that way round. This was a multiple exposure I did in post. I was down on the beach, took a photograph of the beach, a photograph of the sunset. And then I came home and sat down with my iPad, opened a beer, and opened an app. A very, very simple one, where I could overlay the images and make opacity and blend mode changes. And yeah, I could do that in Photoshop. But when you just want to put your feet up and relax in the evening, I don't want to get the laptop out and I don't want to start loading up Photoshop and trying to remember all the different layers. I just want to play. This was taken up in Scotland in a different short break. It's an art installation in a forest. And it became this in Photoshop, overlaid with an ICM image from my willow tree. I really do love that tree. And varying blending modes and colour filters. Since attending an online talk by Jane Lazenby, I've run with the idea of making my own textures instead of using apps, and I've been taking photos of even more stuff to make overlays with. I found that colour textures help add depth and variety to the overall colour. And are any of you going to believe that my totally random project draw for next season was texture? I hope you do, because someone saw me actually make the draw. Following on from that talk and from making textures, I did Jane's Easter Weekend Challenge, where she showed us how to do lots of things, including making brushes and colour match backgrounds, and how to make a montage with many, many layers. I made this montage using vintage photos I had of my grandma. The scans were very old ones, so it's not particularly high res. I hope it projects all right. But it was images I felt a real connection to and I enjoyed working with. And then I did this. I'm not sure how sensible using 13 images for my second attempt was, but it gave me lots of practice. And I finally got my new camera, a Canon R7. It's the best camera I've ever had, and I've been really excited about using it, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I took this photograph of a feather down on Middleton Sands the very first time I took the camera out. It was cropped and processed in Photoshop, and I used Nick's Silver Effects. This was also taken that same trip. And still on Middleton Sands on the same day, and a very simple ICM. And now the daffodils have given way to the tulips, and I've had even more opportunity to play with the camera. I've tried to do some soft focus and some multiple exposure. I've used Nick FX, I've used Photoshop, and I've used some of the techniques from Jane's Easter Challenge. It's all just playing and practicing and having fun. I think this is possibly my favourite recent image. Windswept. It started as an ICM on Littledale Fell, looking over towards Caton Wind Farm. It's taken on the new camera. It's cropped and processed in Photoshop. And I've added lots and lots of texture layers. One of them from a cyanotype I did, or rather from a photograph taken of that cyanotype. There's brush layers, using homemade brushes, and colours from within the photograph. At the end of the day, the sun shines through the willow leaves, and it's rosy on the trunk, and the fronds gently move and the light slowly dims. And I took an ICM photo. And I made the general Adobe Camera Raw edits, and I rotated the photo, and I cropped it 3 different ways into squares, and then I set up a new file that was the same size as the original, and I overlaid those squares in different ways. And I flipped them, and I rotated them, and I repositioned them. And then I added lots of texture layers, and different opacities and different blending modes. And eventually, this came out. Don't worry, I'm not going to subject you to these images often, but it does make me think. It started as a photograph. So when does a photograph stop being a photograph? I think all photography is creative, but creative photography appears to be the term in use for ICM and multiple exposure and highly manipulated images. I've got an increasing and a growing love and interest in that. But I'm still photographing in my garden. I'm still photographing on the beach, and strangers on the beach, street on the beach. I'm still photographing stuff, items. I still seem to be photographing doors and knockers and handles. And even the occasional landscape, especially when you've got a rainbow like that in the middle of it. And I'm making the fortunate mistakes. I took this image into Photoshop and then into Nik Analog Effects, and it didn't render properly. But I looked at the curves and the squares, and I loved that not quite rendered look, so I kept the image. I want to thank everyone who's encouraged me this year, not just with the nice general comments, but giving me pointers and ideas and encouraging me to follow my heart and produce the images that I really enjoy. I might not get any higher up the league tables, but I've been happier with my images recently than I've ever been before. Thank you very much.